I belong everywhere. And in a way, I belong nowhere. And so I started writing, and that was quite fun. And then it, morphed into food. We sacrifice a lot for our children. That's part of our DNA, I think.
Yeah.
Because, we physically have them, right? Even if I want you to do this aspects of international cuisine for my management trainees. I said, great. And I remember the girls looking at their watch at 5 o'clock. I think women of a certain class or a certain background have the facility to talk to men on a level. I think a lot of women don't have that chance. Sometimes it's nice to think, okay, this is my surrounding. What can I do to make a success of myself in this? Stories about menopause, stories about women's health. I think those stories are not talked about enough. It's wonderful to receive an award, even though there are so many awards nowadays. But this one, the first one I received, was a big deal, and I didn't realize how big. You have to believe that bad things happen to you for a reason, and you grow up.
Hi, Karen, and welcome to the About Her Show, a show where we get trailblazing women to share the story of their lives with us. To tell us about their journey, their challenges, ups and downs, so that not only do they get to showcase themselves, but they also help us inspire other women who have dreams, ambitions, but for some reason you're not unable to follow their dreams. And then,
Sure.
along with women, we also get men on the show, men who champion such trailblazing women, because we believe that for a truly gender inclusive world, men and women need to be allies in this journey. Now, when it comes to you, I don't really have any words to describe you because I'm sure anyone who has any knowledge about food and the culinary space in India knows you through your books, your talk shows, the restaurants, Pune's farmer market. You've done so much in this space. There is no way that people don't know. So I really don't want to give any formal introduction, but definitely we would like to know more about your journey, how you carved a niche for yourself, and more. So once again, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta. And thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I think, as you rightly said, it's not talking about myself. The fact that if it can inspire other women, and, one has to talk about one's personal life and professional life, because for women, these are intertwined.
Right.
Somehow men can divide them, and there are, as you rightly said, we have to be allies because there are other pressures on men.
Yes.
The pressure to care for a family, to provide, all of that. I think men have equal pressures, but other pressures.
Right, absolutely. All right. So then let's dive in with the first question. Yeah. So as I understand, you've lived across Mumbai, London, and Paris.
Yes.
How did being a woman navigating different cultures influence your personal and professional identity?
I must tell you, first of all, nothing was planned. Young people today plan. They have this very clear image of where they'd like to be.
Yeah.
In terms of business, maybe not personally, but in terms of business. And I'm so sometimes impressed or so shocked at women who say, well, I want this kind of husband, or I want this kind of job. I knew a friend of my son who actually said, I want to live in London. So I am only going to marry somebody who will give me that opportunity. And she did.
Okay.
And she seems quite happy. So, what I'm just saying is I didn't have any of that. I grew up in a country where my parents had emigrated to, thinking they would give their children a better life. And no judgment. I think they did what they thought was the great step at the time, and they were very brave to do that. They had a very nice life in India. They weren't boat people or something. They had, I wouldn't say super privileged, but, a middle class professional life in India where My mother never cooked. My mother never did this or that, but they had a very comfortable life.
Right.
And then they decided to up and go to the UK.
Hmm.
So this is a problem because what happens is you have Desi parents, and this is reflecting in movies of Meera Nair and so on, in the namesake, for example, you have of course, they were very Desi parents. My parents came from Goa originally and then lived in Bombay. So already they had a kind of Western look on life a little bit. But, Desi parents going to a Western country and then expecting their children to be educated and all of that, but then to conform to what they consider correct.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to happen. So I grew up, I went to England. My parents moved when I was just six. And my sister was maybe 3 or 4. And so we were really brought up in this very anglicized, little suburb of London. And my mother and my father sent us to the best school they could afford and all of this. So it was all very rosy. When it came to sort of, they didn't push, but when it came to sort of getting married or things like going out at night on your own, my English friends were allowed. I wasn't. I had to lie, or I had to make up think I was going to somebody's house and actually we went dancing, or, so those things do happen. And then you tell yourself later, when I have children, if I have children, I won't do this. And it's tough. It's tough to remember. I remember my father always saying things like, "Oh God, you treat this house like a hotel." I never see you. And you go in and you go out, and I see you in the morning. And I thought, I will never say that to my children. And I almost did once, and I had to sort of, hold myself back because that's what they were doing.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, how does it form my identity? In a way, I belong everywhere, and in a way, I belong nowhere. Okay. So, Isabella Allende said this, sometimes I sit in my family and I wonder whose family this is. So similarly, sometimes I'm in the UK, I have a brown face, I very clearly am not English, but I sound English, so they get confused. And I have a lot of mannerisms and a lot of expressions, which are, my children laugh, whatchamacallit and all of these things that I say. They're very English. I grew up there.
Yeah, right. Obviously.
So, but I think now in British society, it is a multicultural society now. There are more brown people in London than white, probably, So I feel quite comfortable. In India, I always have issues because people see me and I look like one of them and one of everyone. But then I say things that they don't quite get, or they start laughing, or, I have this all the time, especially with women. They kind of want to understand, but they can't understand certain, I don't mean physically understand words.
I get what you're saying.
Can't quite understand what I'm about. So that's going to happen,
Absolutely. That's going to happen because I think different influences have made you who you are. So yes, maybe for some people, it may be difficult for you to get what you're saying or what you're talking about or, what you're doing.
I mean, just now, for example, I had a friend who's in Paris and she posted something and I said, "Babes, you're going to all the wrong places. You're going to these international cafes and you're going to have hamburgers. And that's not France and that's not Paris for me." But then I realized maybe it's a modern Paris. Maybe it's international Paris. Maybe French people like to. She said, "But we're meeting lots of artists." And well, maybe they like to. But when I was growing up in Paris, we didn't go to places like that. Those sort of places were considered, for foreigners. Not for French people. They wouldn't go and have a dream of having a cocktail somewhere. You'd have a glass of wine, in a little cafe. You wouldn't have, maybe you have a Kir Royale or something was the most, you wouldn't have, or a Kir, you wouldn't have, a whiskey sour sitting in a cafe, and you wouldn't eat a piece of cheesecake or have, calamari fried or what this kind of thing is very international fare.
Yeah.
But maybe I realized maybe the narrative has changed.
It has, maybe it has. Yeah, yeah. So tell me, from international relations to a food buyer, how did you find the courage to pivot into a creative and entrepreneurial career path, especially as a woman in the late 80s and 90s? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't that easy. Maybe it's easier today, but then those were different times.
International relation, well, I said I didn't have a clear path, but I did have an idea. My idea was to work in Europe because I lived in Europe. So my idea was to work in Paris. I loved Paris. I interned with Elle, the magazine, and then I did a little internship with UNESCO, and I thought I will do something with media, I'm sure. Either I will, the people I lived with, he was the editor-in-chief of Elle. So he got me in there to do an internship. I thought, this is fantastic. This is where I'm going to be, And then that was before I went to university. And then I went to university. I did a year in France. And that's when I did my little stint at UNESCO in the press office. And I thought, I'm going to live here. I had everything sorted. I came to India for a holiday to see my grandmother because I was the only one kind of Vela, as we say, And I met Mr. Anand and I lived here. That was it. So there was no question. He wasn't going to up and move. He was a lot older. He had a very established career and life in Bombay. And I thought it was a very exciting move. So, yeah, I gave it up. Had it been 10 years later, I would have thought twice, because I would have been, I had an established life in Paris. But I hadn't. I was on the cusp of starting it. I was 23. Okay. So, yeah, so I thought, well, yeah, why not give this a go,
Yeah.
And then he asked me to marry him, and I said, okay, and everyone was quite shocked. And I carried on. So international relations went out the window. I did some writing. Okay. I did do some writing, and I wrote, and it's still my first love. I wrote for Debonair of all things. Then I wrote for Indian Express, and I tried because I really couldn't find anything in international relations that would work for me in India. First of all, my Hindi was non-existent. Even today, it's barely passable, certainly not in Delhi, but it's like Bombay Hindi, So my parents were not Hindi speakers. Okay. And I spoke European languages. So that was a problem. I couldn't do television. I couldn't do any of that because it was only Doordarshan in those days.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do Hindi television. And English television was very, very narrow, if you remember. There was only one kind of show or slot. So that wouldn't work. And so I started writing, and that was quite fun. And then it, morphed into food because my husband had to entertain a lot. And so I ended up cooking a lot, and I lived with people in Paris who were great cooks. So I learned French food, and he thought it was very exciting. There was this trophy wife, cooking up this storm with French food. So, being young and nice looking, I think helped in those days. It opened certain doors. And also being married to somebody who was older and quite established in Bombay society also meant that men didn't hit on me. Right. Because I was a married woman. Correct. Had I not been married, definitely would have been a different story.
Okay. All right. Okay. So Karen, tell me, continuing with your career and the journey. So yes. You worked in kitchens, led businesses, consulted on restaurant concepts, but have you ever felt underestimated in the F&B industry because of your gender? And if so, then how did you deal with it?
I don't know. I was very lucky. I had opportunities and doors opened. Now, obviously, once the doors opened, I remember I did a lot of work for Britannia Sunil Alagh saw me, he said, look, we're going to do. Also, the nature of my work, remember, was a lot of it was out there, was demonstrating recipes, was doing things. So because I spoke well and, all of that, doors did open. Of course, after that, I had to prove myself as anywhere. Did the gender stop? No, the gender helped because of the kind of path I chose.
Okay.
So because I chose this kind of thing where I was in television, running restaurants, what I really lacked was business skill, because I'd never run a business. Never thought I was going to run a business, but I did have at that time my husband's office as a back thing. He had accountants and all of that. That helped. Did my gender not forward me? No, I think I was doing what I wanted to do. Had I wanted to do something more businessy,
Yeah.
I think gender would have become an issue.
All right. Yes, I
They would
get.
have said, oh, this woman is fine for being on television and all that, but should I invest money in her? But this was also the time, remember, Sangeeta, that people didn't think about business plans. There were no such thing as VC,
Yeah.
you used your own money and maybe borrowed a bit from the bank and you carried on.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think that today is a different story.
Yeah. Today is a completely different story. So tell me, these ventures, the Pune Farmers Market and K's Kitchen, now these are family-driven ventures. So what's your view on balancing personal relationships and leadership as a woman entrepreneur?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, and it's really tough when you have children. I
Yes.
think when you're just married or you have a relationship, it's a different story, because you can call the shots a little bit, because if you're working, I mean, my children, for example, one has a partner, one is married, and both their wives work in quite demanding jobs. And so one cooks, and there's no gender definition as much as I can see. But it's whoever does something. Both my boys cook, so it depends on what you're good at. But I think the issue comes in when you have children,
Right.
and then the mother figure, the homemaker, all of that tends to come on the woman.
Yes.
And that, I think, becomes the issue. And also, we do it to ourselves because we want the children to love us. We want to do for children. The story of the chicken, the famous story where, the breast of the chicken goes to the children, the legs go to the husband, and the woman eats whatever is left over. This is typical.
Yeah.
And we sacrifice a lot for our children. That's part of our DNA, I think,
Yeah.
because we physically have them, right? Even if you adopt, doesn't matter, they're yours.
Yes.
So I think that's when the problem is. How do you, if you see people, then what do you remember about your mother? Oh, she used to give me these fantastic sandwiches for school. She used to make this great dish. A lot of it is around food.
Yeah.
My mother used to do this for me. My mother used to do. My mother used to read me a story. It's always mother, isn't it? Very rarely people say, oh, if it's a boy, they may remember their father taking them for football or cricket or whatever. But generally, it's the mother figure for
Yeah.
boys and girls, I think, more. And that's when that's when the division, it becomes very difficult. How do you do that? How do you stay what's a good mother? Indira Nooyi said this often, that in the middle of a meeting, I had to go off to my child's sports practice or something like that. But yeah, you have to balance them. And I think you have to work harder.
Yes.
We definitely work harder than men to be able to do both.
Yes. We
I think
definitely.
a man doesn't worry. I think a man, if he stays in the office late, that's another story. I don't know what men do in their offices. They must be very inefficient to stay so late, because we manage to finish our work
Yes.
quite quickly. We don't have to stay till midnight in the office,
Yeah.
So while I'm late home tonight or whatever, but the woman has to cope with what goes on in the house.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't men who help, but I think it's still 80-20.
It is. It's getting better, but it's still not there. It's still the woman's responsibility when it comes to the home and the children. And like you said, it's part of our DNA. So maybe we tend to, do more, but then nonetheless, it does fall on us. That is there.
Absolutely.
So tell me, in a space which is traditionally dominated by main chefs, males,
Mm.
what has helped you hold your ground and lead with confidence? I mean, though women
You know,
cook at home, but professional.
I always say this. I say women cook, women don't get paid for it. Men get paid for it. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Men are out there, doing a job. We
Mm.
have to do it every day. Nobody pays us to cook,
Right, right.
And I think it's very difficult because the hospitality industry, let's call it that, not just cooking,
Yes,
is tough. It's long hours.
yes.
It's working in sometimes a very kind of misogynist atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men are very, very male chauvinist. Your work colleagues will be very male chauvinist. And then if you have to, I remember when I was doing a management training course that I was conducting for the park, and Priya Paul, got me in. I mean, she's wonderful. And she said, look, I want you to do this aspects of international cuisine for my management trainees. I said, great. And I remember the girls looking at their watch at 5 o'clock. I mean, what are you looking at your watch for? You have to finish the class. And they would say, but ma'am, if we don't get this bus, then the crowds come and then we are, manhandled in these buses. And then I realized it's a different world to what I live in. I just go up the floor and go to my room,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
hotel. These poor girls go to Noida and God knows where, Gurgaon, Noida, wherever they live, in buses, in public buses. And it's quite humiliating. So I think we're also talking about a kind of class issue here.
Yeah.
I think women of a certain class or a certain background have the facility to talk to men on a level. I think a lot of women don't have that chance.
Right, right. That is true. And even I think within that level also, you may come across, like you said, male chauvinists and all of that. So yes, it's not easy to deal with them.
And then you have working class women, and then it turns around again
Yeah, yeah.
because a lot of them are the breadwinners.
Yes.
Your maids and all that are breadwinners. Mine is. The husband has lost his job, so she's the breadwinner. So then you own it. It's power, no, at the end of the day.
Yes. True, true. So Karen, moving on to your writing and your being in the media. So that part of your career. So you've written for leading publications and also hosted major TV shows. Now, again, have you found it challenging to assert a woman's perspective in food media, or have things evolved now, since you began?
Well, as I said, in the world of hospitality, I think it's tough.
Okay.
And it's tough because of the long hours and so on. Having said that, sorry, just to finish that conversation, you've got people like Manisha at ITC, and you've got women chefs in big positions now. But it's tough. We all have support at home to be able to do that, whether it's in-laws or husband or whatever. In writing, it's a bit easier because you can write from anywhere.
Right, right.
So that I think is I often talk to young women about when I get asked to talk about the hospitality industry. I say something like photography and writing are great for women because you can do it from home. I mean, I'm sitting in my home right now, so I have an office at home. Even though I don't have children anymore, whatever, I'm still used to my home. I just did, my husband's had dental surgery. I just did a quick something for him for dinner because it's slightly different to the kind of food we normally eat because it's got to be all soft and mashy. So I'm still doing all this nonsense, So I think writing gives you that facility. I can come here in my pajamas at midnight and decide I have a deadline and I must do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think writing is much easier for a woman. And I think, sometimes as women, Sangeeta, one shouldn't fight all the time. I think one should look at, accept where you are. I live in wherever, I do whatever. My father's like this, you can't keep fighting. I think sometimes it's nice to think, okay, this is my surrounding. What can I do to make a success of myself in this?
Okay.
And maybe choose knowing that you're in a family where you've got a dominating father or father-in-law or mother-in-law, or it could be mother-in-law, right? What can I do to make a success of myself in that? There's no point saying, oh, I'm going to do open heart surgery, and my daughter-in-law is a doctor and she wanted to be a surgeon. And she's very bright. And her father just turned around and said, no. He said, your sister's a surgeon, your brother-in-law's a surgeon. I don't want another surgeon in the family. I don't see these people at all. They're very sought after and busy. Choose something else. And she hated him for it. And she just went, picked out a straw and went dermatology. Okay, I'll do that. But, sometimes it's, of course, now she can still do what she wants. But you've got, let's face reality, that we've got constraints,
Yeah.
Not only women the world over. It's not just here.
Definitely, definitely. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense being practical, I think, accepting the situation,
Yeah, absolutely.
trying to make the most of it, the best out of it, because you can't always keep fighting, because then you won't be able to do what the other options are,
And we do want to live within a family. We do want to be cordial. We don't want to live on an island. We want to have our family get-togethers and dinners. You don't have to, as I say, I have this terrible expression which people find difficult to. I say, you don't have to sleep with somebody. You just have to get on with them. So you don't have to have some intimate relationship with people. You just have to be civil and nice and meet at family gatherings and and not ruffle somebody's feathers.
True. All right, so continuing with this, I mean, what stories about food and women do you feel still need more attention in mainstream conversations?
I definitely think there are, and I see this in the UK a lot recently, stories about menopause, stories about women's health. I think those stories are not talked about enough. And and you see that as you get older. I had a fantastic gynae in Bombay. When it came to things like menopause, whether you should have a hysterectomy, I found she was also a little blank, although she's very senior. So I think even our doctors, we're great at delivering babies. We're great at, other things. But I think after that, this menopause story is something which men don't, and a lot of women don't like to discuss. In the old days, you would live in a joint family and you'd talk to your sister-in-law who you liked, or your, maybe not your mother-in-law, but you talk to a sister or a sister-in-law or somebody in the family with whom you could discuss, sex, menopause, all these words that were taboo. And I think certainly where other subjects like women working, sharing of responsibilities with children, all of that now is talked about a lot more. I think this women's health is not talked about enough. And a lot of girls now are getting menopause much earlier. And a lot of the time, poor men, I say, because they don't understand what's going on. Why is she having these flushes? Why is she shouting at me? Why is she grumpy all the time? And if they understood that, maybe they could, life would be a bit easier.
Definitely, because if you understand your partner, if you understand the person in your life, obviously, you'll be able to make sense out of a lot of things.
I think women understand men a lot better. If the man is going through a financial difficulty, which often happens because there's all this pressure to make money, and I think we understand. I see that a lot. We don't chuck the man out.
No,
we say, well, things will get better. Well, let me help with this. Let me ask somebody if they can help you. We always try and find solutions in whatever strata we are. But I find men get a bit of a blockage on these things.
They do. And I think on a lot of things, I think maybe because women are more flexible by nature. So I feel we are more solution oriented. We are looking to solve problems, whatever they may be. And, and which means a kind of a more flexible and positive mindset. So which I guess makes the difference.
Yeah, because when you don't have to have children, but I'm saying when a woman has children, there are so many things you have to solve every day. You're going to class, the bus hasn't come, the rickshaw driver hasn't come, the driver hasn't come, blah, blah, blah. You've got to go for so-and-so class. what to put in that wretched dabba.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate question. What to make for dinner? That's all our thing, right? What will the children like? There are like 20 questions a day that you have to solve.
Absolutely. So I guess
Unless your children are boarding school, but otherwise they're like so many little things that we're used to it,
yes,
We've done
absolutely.
it, we've done it,
And keep doing it all the time.
and we keep doing it, and it doesn't stop.
No, never, never, never. All right. So tell me, Karen, as someone who's blended Indian and international culinary traditions, do you think women bring a unique lens to how we preserve and innovate with food culture?
Yes, I think so. I think women generally want to please, right? We like to please our family or whoever's around us. And I think we are more open to things like, so if you look at health food,
Hmm.
which has now become quite a big thing, it was just a word earlier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People are into what is an antioxidant, what is, sometimes it goes a bit, oh, this is good for you and that's bad for you, whatever. But I think it's the woman finally who says, well, let's change our diet a bit. Let's put, ghee on our rotis again and not processed oil.
Yeah.
Or, I think women are much more flexible. It also gives us more work that way.
Hmm.
But we're much more flexible. We're much more open to new ideas.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're a bit gullible as well. We
Hmm.
listen to all sorts of, idiots sometimes on this, online and Instagram. We look at everything. But I think we definitely are more open than men, for sure. I think it's part of the DNA.
Yes, and that I think spills over in every aspect of our life, whether as mothers, wives, partners, even when you're doing anything, even anything creative. I think it comes in everywhere because by
It
nature
does.
we are more flexible.
Yeah.
So, as I understand, you've been awarded by the French government twice. So,
Yes. Nice surprise.
well, we don't know. I mean, knowing what you do, and I've been watching you and seeing you for years, so I'm not surprised. So, tell me, what does it mean to receive global recognition as an Indian woman in the culinary space?
Listen, any recognition is fantastic, isn't it? I
Yeah.
see all these awards nowadays, and I often give them. I was doing one for the Times the other day or something. It's wonderful to receive an award, even though there are so many awards nowadays.
Hmm.
But this one, the first one I received, was a big deal, and I didn't realize how big.
Hmm.
Um, I just thought, it's some French thing. And I had done a lot of work for a French company, a government agency, promoting French wines and food in India.
Okay.
Because I guess I understood it and they wanted someone Indian to be able to, lead these discussions in India.
Yeah.
And then they told me I won the award. I said, oh, great. And then they said, oh, you know who won the year before you?
Hmm.
And I said, no. And they said it was a gentleman. I think it was the chap who wrote, what was he? I know one of the Year in Provence. What was his name? Anyway, he wrote the Year in Provence, which became a TV series.
Hmm.
And then he wrote something Mail, Peter Mail, I think.
Okay.
And after me, Meryl Streep won it for Julie and Julia.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's quite a big deal, yeah. And you go to this, the French, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is all the 17th century building with lots of gold. And I invited a couple of friends because they said, oh, invite anyone you want. I have 4 or 5 friends in Paris, and I invited them, and they all came really dressed up, and I'm like, why are you so dressed up? And then I had one long, nice Sherwani thing that I wore, jacket, that was okay. But I
Hmm.
realized it was a big deal.
Hmm.
And I had to say my whole speech in French.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, well, I speak French, but I didn't really practice a speech.
Hmm.
And then as I got there, they said, "Have you got your speech ready?" And I thought, I don't know what's. So I sat in the bus with some woman I knew, and I said, "Listen, just do on the way to the thing." I said, "Just do the." So I literally wrote it on a piece of paper or
Okay.
back of a napkin or something the day before, or maybe the morning before. But other people took it very seriously.
Hmm.
So there was a Taiwanese gentleman who I got it for culture. The Taiwanese gentleman who got it for business, and he'd taken over a fantastic shop called Mariage Frère, which was all about tea. And he didn't come. And then there was a Russian who had won it for the best restaurant.
Okay.
And he had a French restaurant in Moscow.
Oh, okay.
And his French, my God, it was like drop dead. It was like, 17th century French. It was just impeccable without a single mistake. It was like Victorian English. And I was going after him, and I thought, mine sounds feeble compared to this, But I just said, oh, I'm happy to promote French food and all this rubbish. But mine was like, 10 lines. His was like 10 paragraphs.
Oh,
of course, he went on, and people got a bit tired of him. But yeah, that was a much bigger deal than I expected. And then the second one I got here, which was nice, because I was much older and I'd written a lot by then, so it wasn't so much of a surprise. It was always nice, but the first one, yeah, it's as an Indian, I think it's and as a woman, I was the only woman who got it, by the way.
Wow. So
yeah, the second time I think there've been more women. Well, as I said, Meryl Streep got it the year after I did, but there were 5 awards: one for business, culture, restaurant, something. So there were no other women who got it.
Wonderful. So yes, like you said, any form of recognition, of course, is something that needs to be celebrated. But then when it comes like this, obviously, this is even more.
Yeah.
So of course, Karen, you've had a long and illustrious career and journey and all of that, and you're very well known. But tell me something. Have there been moments in your life when you doubted yourself? And in case that happened, what or who helped you move forward?
There are 2 types of people in this world, Sangeeta. There's a one, do you see the cup, the glass half empty or half full? I never see it half empty. I think my husband sees it half empty because he's much more cautious than me. I see it half full, so I just go on like a bull in a china shop. And of course, there are days where I feel down, or I'm not too well, or I'm thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? But then I see the universe throws things, and it's generally thrown good things. I mean, it's thrown some bad things on a personal level, but I just feel, that was, now looking back, of course, when I went through it, I thought, why me? But, I consider myself a fairly good person. I don't wish anyone any harm. I don't cheat or lie or, well, little lies, but not big lies, or any of that. So why is this happening to me? And you have to believe that bad things happen to you for a reason. And you grow up, in whichever way. And I grew up, and I certainly wasn't aware of half of the things that, when they did happen to me. And I was in my mid-30s with 2 young children. My first husband passed away, all sorts of things, shit hit the fan. And I was just in a daze for a couple of years, and I had to work because I'd already taken on lots of commitments. I took on television commitment. I took on a fantastic opportunity in Delhi with Rohit Khattar, when he very famous now because he has Indian accent and there's, Comare and all these restaurants. So he had the faith. I mean, people had faith in me. I don't know. I was very, very lucky. That's all I can say. And they said, we think you're what we're looking for, kind of thing. So I was very lucky. And if things were a little bit down, they were down for a few days or a few weeks. Or in this particular case, it was personal. And then we had one business. I feel one should have one business and one personal setback. And I had a business setback, which at the time also it was dire. But I was luckily very busy with work.
Okay.
So it didn't, I didn't see it as, well, I did see it. My husband went through 2 years of going to court, which wasn't nice. But I just feel we're in a better position now because we're not business people, but we've understood how things, I think if you're reasonably intelligent, you can understand how things work.
Yes.
But if you have never had that problem in your life, how would you know?
Absolutely.
How to cope?
I also The same, every experience teaches you something, good or bad, whatever it may be. If there is a
Absolutely.
lesson lying, and yes, you learn it and you move on.
Yeah. At the time, it seemed like it would never end.
Yes.
But yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Karen, if you could speak to your younger self, the girl who was just stepping into Lucas Carton or opening the salad bar, what would you
Mm.
say to her today?
Oh, nothing. I think I have nothing to say because I think I cope quite well.
Okay.
By the way, when I was at Lucas Carton,
Hmm.
I came in again as an intern. It was a totally male a kitchen.
Okay.
Everybody was, yeah, from all the chefs. They have this thing called brigade where, the chef does everything for, say, 3 dishes.
Hmm.
So even the person who's bringing in the fowl or bringing in the fish will give it to you. You will clean the fish. You
Hmm.
will cook the fish. You will clean your area. So there's no hierarchy in that sense. It's a very old French way of working.
Okay.
And there was one single woman in the kitchen.
Hmm. And that.
Only woman, actually, no, sorry, in the restaurant.
Oh,
The
okay. Okay.
woman in the restaurant was a woman out front who used to kind of welcome people in, not a
Hmm.
very exciting or high level job. But
Yes.
you know what? Welcome people in and sit them down. She wasn't even a manager or anything.
Right.
But the waiters, the manager of the hotel, of the restaurant, all the people in the kitchen, it was all men.
Hmm.
So what can I say? I don't know. I survived it. And when I started the salad bar, my partner was difficult, who was a man. Nelson Wong was a very difficult person.
Okay.
He understood that he was very clever. He
Hmm.
understood that Bombay wanted, he had this fantastic piano bar,
Hmm. Hmm.
which was a nightclub
Yeah.
where he gave women membership, if you remember. I
Hmm.
think it dates us. But for the days, what am I going to do in this? I paid so much for the decor. And so he got Parmeshwar Godrej and what's her name? That wonderful woman to do
Permission.
the interiors.
Okay.
Parmeshwar and I can't remember her name, the other lady who was our partner. And I did the salad bar for lunch. But he was he was a difficult person to work with because he had a huge ego,
Hmm.
very successful, very, very hands-on,
Hmm. Hmm.
but huge ego. So he knew he wanted me there and he wanted success. But when I started being very successful
Hmm.
and people come in and ask for me and not for him,
Oh,
didn't like that.
yeah.
That was so I don't think there's anything. I think I just had to go through it. I don't think there's anything I could say to my younger self
Hmm.
that that would prepare me for, as I said, I've had 2 bumps in my life.
Hmm.
And if I can prepare, not for the salad bar or for Le Carton, I survived all of that. But to prepare me for the bumps, I don't know. I don't know what you can do. Just, get a bit wiser, you know. No, not really. I mean, if people are going to behave badly, what can you do? That's the way they are, no?
Oh, true.
Can't really do much. But I was very lucky. I had support both times. I mean, huge support both times. I think that kept me going.
I'm sure. I'm sure. So finally, Karen, what message do you have for women who feel torn between family expectations and their own creative or entrepreneurial dreams, which a lot of women do?
I often get people, Sangeeta, coming to me, these women coming to me when I do these demos and, talks and stuff. And they said, I make pickles and I want to sell them. And I say to them, first of all, do you have someone to do your accounts? Do you
Right.
have a food technologist to help you preserve that problem? That product.
Hmm, hmm.
Um, do you have someone to do your FSSI, your legal stipulations of products? And
Right.
they're all like, oh, no, we don't want to do this.
Hmm,
Then don't get into it. It's not because of family.
hmm.
It's not because of, it's just that, no, you don't want to get into that. Now, there are a lot of women who are very ambitious.
Yes.
And I would say if you don't have children, even if you have a partner, if you don't have children, go for it.
Hmm.
But I think when you have children, and then you want to make pickle, or you don't have support. If
Yeah.
you want to be in your marriage, if you don't want to be in your marriage, it's a different story. If you want to be in your relationship and you want to make pickles, these are the things you need, or you want to be an interior designer or whatever. You need an office. You need someone backing you. When I started writing, Sangeeta, I would write after my children were asleep.
Yeah.
So they would go to bed, I would eat something, and I would start writing at 9 at night. And you have to make those sort of sacrifices. If you're willing to do that and you don't want to go out and party, it's fine. But I think you have to just see, like this pickle story I'm telling you, because there's been several people who've come to me. I make cakes, and I want to take it to the next level. But have you got these things? Have you got an accountant? Have you got a place to store your cakes? Have you got a food technologist to tell you can't go around poisoning someone, Of course. You have to have all these things. If you're willing to get all those things, or get someone to support you to get those things, fine. But a lot of women don't want to bother with that. Then just sell them on the net or sell them through your friends. It's fine. But then you can't look at a career, because I think any woman, and I'm going to be shouted at for saying this, but any woman who is successful and has a family, as you know, works very hard, works harder than a man.
Yes.
So if you're willing to do that, it is, I still work, it's not like I'm sitting here having massages. I'm doing my calls, I'm helping the company, if you're willing to do that, and you can have fun, because when you're financially independent, it's a great feeling.
It is.
It's a fantastic feeling. And I think as a woman, I must tell you a funny story. I had a friend who went to Thailand. She's very successful. She has an event company in the UK. And she brought this great outfit that she showed me. And she said, it was hundreds of dollars and blah, blah. But I didn't tell my husband how much it cost. I told him it cost 300. Actually, it cost 700. I said, but it's your money.
Yes.
So she said, yes, I know. But, he'll kind of look at me to say, why did you spend 700 when you've got, a cupboard full of clothes? We'll do that.
Yes.
We do. Now, a man will think nothing of, getting a boat or a sound system or a new watch, or whatever they spend their money on, will think nothing. And I wouldn't say all men, but some men, most. Some will say, well, I don't know if I should spend on this or whatever, but most of them won't ask you as a woman.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely not. So obviously, independence means choices.
So I think it is all about money at the end of the day. If you have, you were talking, sorry, I'll go back about what would I tell my younger self. I would tell my younger self to be more financially sound.
Okay.
I wasn't very financially sound. I would spend money in silly places. Sometimes I needed to spend money to dress in a certain way because I was in a certain atmosphere. But I think I could have been more financially disciplined.
Okay.
And I see friends of mine who were financially disciplined and who bought themselves properties and put it in their name. It's not to be selfish. It's just to have your nest egg.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the only thing I would have done is that I would have been a little more, I was working such a lot. I left it to other people. And I said, do this and do that. And not that anyone cheated me.
No,
it
would have been, I agree.
Yeah, no one cheated me, except the second thing where he cheated us as a company, but not me. But it went here and there. And of course, it also goes on lifestyle. People, I go to Paris or I go here. Well, that's where the money went, But it also went to learn. Somebody said to me, look, do you want to learn about Thai food? I've got this woman in Bangkok. Off I went, So it was also to enhance my knowledge.
Of course.
I still do that, I equate everything with a flight. So if I make money, I'll say, oh, well, that will get me to Italy for a month or something, So I do equate everything with experience and what I can do. Yeah. And even when I'm on holiday, I look for recipes, I go to markets. I just saw a very nice Insta post of this woman called Shama Pavar, who started this banana fiber unit in Hampi.
Okay.
And And she said, and someone asked her questions like this, how did you start? And Shama said, my friends, the other one, Karen, came and she wanted little rassi to put on the top of her jam jars. Put a little cloth and a little rassi.
Yeah.
She loved the idea of banana fiber because she'd seen it on the net or something. And she asked me to make it for her.
Okay.
So that's how she started her banana fiber unit, which is now huge. Because she started making, there's so much banana in Hampi, she started making this banana. Then, of course, they researched it and found out what they could do and how would they make it bigger. And she makes beautiful things out of banana fiber.
Wow.
But she was very nice to say that I was the one who said, let's at least start doing banana fiber for little things like that. So I'm constantly doing that. I'm constantly looking for new ideas to do things, whether they are.
That's also important. I mean, you have to constantly like evolve, innovate, change with times. You can't be kind of, stuck in you can't stay like fixed in a place. You need to move on and learn new things and change with time.
I've discussed this with girlfriends. We say, oh, somebody wants some money. Oh, Lelo, take this. Sometimes we should say no.
Yes.
I think we should look after ourselves.
Yeah.
Put that little bit. Some women do it.
They do.
And they do it very successfit's And then when they are 70, they've got this pot of, money that they've saved up, or they've saved up with a little bit of gold every, whenever it's Ekadashi or this or that, they say they buy a little bit of gold. Now that is very acceptable in an Indian culture.
Right.
If I go to my jeweler at an auspicious time and I say I want to buy a little gold, the family's okay with it.
Yes.
If I was in a traditional family.
Right.
So I think, yes, financial discipline, I think is very important for women.
It is.
And you see women friends of mine who've got divorced because they've had bad marriages or whatever. It's not that the man is abusing you or hitting you. It's just that you're different people.
Yeah.
You met when you were 18 and whatever, and you've grown. And I found that they survive because they're independent.
Yes.
Or they have family money.
Yes, that is critical.
And it's this whole middle class, where women sometimes, working so hard, but they don't save it for themselves.
True. Yeah.
So I think very selfish thing to say, I know, but I think we should put a little bit by for ourselves.
No, I don't think it's selfish. I think it's sensible because, you're not taking away from someone. You're working hard and just keeping something aside for you so that you're independent. That's, I think,
later on, you don't want to be beholden to your children or,
absolutely,
whatever. You want to do it. You want to do it yourself.
Right. So, Karen, while we've come to the end of the conversation, we still have the rapid fire round.
Oh.
Which is going to be 5 quick questions, 5 quick answers. Sure. Right? So are you ready?
Sure. I am.
Okay. So the first question, your guilty pleasure food?
French fries.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Or anything with aloo. If I the West French fries and here aloo, I'll have aloo in any way.
All right. Okay. The next one. One spice you can't live without.
One spice I can't live without. Kashmiri mirchi.
Okay. All right. The next one. If you could host a dream dinner party with 3 women from history or today, whatever, the choice is yours, who would be on your guest list?
That's a tough one. Oh, that is tough. I don't know, three amazing women.
Yeah.
Think about that. I'll come to it at the end because I can't think. I don't know. Would it be a political? No, I don't think any women in politics have impressed me really. Anywhere in the world. I don't know. I can think of lots of people, but no, I'll have to come back to you on that. I don't know. Jane Austen. I think she was quite. Yeah, I've just run an article. I think she must have been quite a fun woman.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe an actress that has some gravitas. I really can't think just now of an actress.
Okay, so Jane Austen it's going to be for now.
I think Jane Austen because I think she wrote for her time.
Yes.
She was a feminist. She was anti-slavery. She did her own contracts with her publishers. I think quite a gal for her time.
Maybe Meryl Streep?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard odd things about Meryl Streep. I think she's a fun girl, but I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know what she's done or what she's not done. But yes, I think so. Someone like her for sure.
All right. Fair enough. So the next one. If not food, then what would have been what a successful career, or what would have been a successful career for you?
If not food, I think anything in broadcasting. I love writing. I think that's still what I'm best at
Mm-hmm.
and what I love doing. So anything in TV and broadcasting, I think I would have loved to have done and would. And I think the only problem is in broadcasting, especially in India, well, everywhere actually, when you're of a certain age, you're kind of out.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
noticed that a lot. Men know, but
Yeah.
women, as soon as you start getting the gray hair, I mean, this was a liberation, right? The gray hair during COVID.
Yeah.
The women actually said, I'm not going to die.
Hmm.
But I noticed when I did my last TV show when I was in my early 40s.
Hmm.
And it's true, everything went to OTT platforms, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if you notice in the West, there are a lot of old men that do TV still, your David Attenboroughs and your Gardners, and all these people are in their 70s and they're still on TV.
Hmm.
But women, do you see so many 70-year-old women? No.
No, not really. Yeah.
I mean, Joanna Lumley. I think Joanna Lumley, one of the women I would like to have for dinner. I
Okay.
love Joanna Lumley, Ab Fab, and she's had to produce her shows.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and now she's proved herself after Ab Fab was such a great success. I
Right.
think it has to be a woman who has a sense of humor.
Okay. Okay. Fair. All right. So the final question. The best piece of advice you ever received?
I received from a business friend who said, own nothing, rent everything.
Okay. Yes.
And I think for me, not everybody, his thing was don't own all these properties. The valuation goes up and down. When you need the money, the value might be less. And I'm terrible at investing in property. I've never been lucky. Some people are very good. My sister's great. Some people, I just have it, or they calculate, they study the market and they know I'm terrible. So I think what he said for me worked. Rent, don't own things where you have to run across the country.
Right. All right. So that's the end of these 5 questions, and of course, the end of the show as well. So what should I say? Thank you so much. It's been an
Thank you,
absolute delight getting to know you and hearing your views on different things, and very interesting, because yes, a different space you're coming from, and like I said, a space where still you don't have so many women. Of course, it's changing, but nonetheless.
Yeah, but we've got a hospitality group, and I see how many women are on that compared to men.
Yeah.
It's still, I would say, 70-30.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's
interesting.
only not pricing because, as I said, these are demanding time-wise jobs.
Right.
And a lot of women cannot do a 15-hour day,
Absolutely.
That's the only reason, not because we're not good enough.
No, definitely not. All right. So thank you so much. And
thank you, Sangeeta. Look forward to hearing this. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the About Her Show. If you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more from where that came from. Our previous guests have shared some amazing stories, so be sure to catch up on past episodes. To keep up with our inspiring conversations and to never miss an update, hit subscribe, rate, review, and share the love. Follow us on social media for some great content, and don't forget to check out our website www.aboutherbysangeeta.com for stories that resonate, inspire, and empower. Know a remarkable woman or an inspiring man blazing a trail? We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at web.abouther@gmail.com and let's bring their story to life on the About Her Show.